What's good, YouTube? My name is Coach, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a deck tech for Kalemne, Disciple of Iroas. Kalemne is a 4-cost giant soldier with double strike and vigilance that says whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater, you get an experience counter. Kalemne gets +1/+1 for each experience counter you have. Now, generally, when people play this commander deck, they are playing giant tribal. Kalemne is a giant, and just a quick backstory. I was in Puerto Rico with my one cousin, and he had purchased this precon. This commander was initially inside of a precon, and he had a giant tribal version of the deck. I'm not too sure if he even plays that commander deck anymore. So I took him vacating this commander as an opportunity for me to build my own version of the deck, and this is what I eventually came up with. So this is Boros control, and the way we're attempting to focus on controlling the game is to force our opponent's creatures to be tapped. So we have different piles of cards over here, and each pile of cards is going to express a different portion of the game plan. So the first pile of cards we're going to look at over here. First card we have here is Blind Obedience. Blind Obedience reads, artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. And we also can extort. But you're going to notice a theme here because the next card is actually in Japanese. But it reads the same exact thing. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control, or actually creatures your opponents control, enter the battlefield tapped. Sunwing, enter the battlefield tapped. Enter the battlefield tapped. Creatures you control have haste, which is cool, but more importantly, enter the battlefield tapped. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control come into play tapped. Kismet does the same exact thing. Talia does the same thing. And a Citadel Siege that at the beginning of combat on each opponent's turn, I can tap target creature that player controls. So generally, we're looking to make sure that our opponent's creatures are consistently tapped down. And if our opponent has the opportunity to have an untapped creature, we can continue to tap them down with the creatures that we have over here, like Gideon's Lawkeeper. We pay 1 white mana, and we can tap Gideon's Lawkeeper to tap a target creature. Gold Meadow Harrier, Law Rune Enforcer, Ballynock Trapper. This actually says whenever you play a white spell, you may untap this Trapper, so you may be able to tap multiple creatures. And then we have a Puppet Strings, as well as Sentinel of the Eternal Watch, which at the beginning of combat on each opponent's turn, we can tap target creature that player controls. So the entire game plan is to force our opponent's creatures to be tapped, and because they're tapped, when we go to attack them with Kalemne, they have no blockers. Or if our opponents are planning on attacking our other opponents, we can tap down their blockers so our opponents can deal damage. Now, Kalemne does gain us experience counters when we cast creatures with converted mana cost 5 or greater, or mana value 5 or greater. So the first card we have here for those creatures that we play is this Solitude. Essentially just allows us to exile a creature when it enters the battlefield for 5 mana. We have Duplicant, which essentially does the same exact thing. Mind you, every single time we cast one of these spells and Kalemne's in play, Kalemne gets buffed by 1 power and 1 toughness. Meteor Golem, destroy target non-land permanent. Sunblast Angel, enters the battlefield, destroy all tapped creatures. Sunblast Angel, and I'll show you the combo later, this card can just end the game. People will scoop. We have Godot, which allows us to search a library for an equipment card. And you'll see what that is later. And we have Combustible Gear Hulk, which is either going to deal a ton of damage to our opponents or draw us 3 cards. The next pile of cards that we have over here are the ones that make these creatures much more relevant, because the majority of these creatures has pretty powerful enter the battlefield triggers, and we want to get as many counters, experience counters as possible to buff Kalemne as much as possible. So we're playing cards like Erratic Portal, which allows us to pay 1 mana to return target creature to its owner's hand. So we can tap this for 1, for example, to bounce Solitude back to our hand, to play Solitude, to exile a creature, and give a counter to Kalemne. We also are playing Umbilicus, which says during each player's upkeep, that player pays 2 life or returns a permanent he or she controls to owner's hand. So I will not be playing 2 life because I will just, with the Umbilicus, target my Solitude, put the Solitude back into my hand in order for me to cast it again, exile the creature, and buff Kalemne. This right here is a Blood Clock. This does the same exact thing as Umbilicus. We also have a Teleportation Circle and a Far Traveler, which essentially allows us to exile a creature and then return to the battlefield under our control. These 2 cards over here are nice, specifically with the end of the battlefield effects that we have over here, and others that you can find in the deck list below. But specifically the Far Traveler only triggers on creatures that are tapped that we control. But remember that we can tap our own creatures down at will with the creatures that we have. The last pile of cards that we have here, just a little mini secret inside this deck. First card we have here is Open the Armory, which allows us to search our library for an equipment, and that equipment is the Sunforger. Now, I just grabbed some of the instants that we have inside the deck that work well with Sunforger, but this is there's a mini Sunforger theme inside this deck. We're playing Bolt Bend, which allows us to change target of a spell or an ability. Dawn Charm regenerates a creature, also counters a spell that targets us. Change the target of a spell, and change the target of a spell. So there are a bunch of other instants inside the deck that work well with Sunforger, but those are just some of the things that we use to protect our board state and protect our creatures. And that is Kalemne. The deck list is in the description below. You're more than welcome to check out that deck list. If you're a new Commander player, just be aware that we do have a community in the Discord that works together to build Commander decks. So you are more than welcome to join that community. And if you're someone that's good at teaching people how to build Commander decks, you're more than welcome again to join that community and help people build more fun or more powerful Commander decks, okay? I always end the video by saying the same thing. Always remember, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day. Most importantly, you got to remember to believe in yourself, all right? Peace out, people.